Hey, everybody. We're living in a period just before the aggiornamento, the coming spring, when we may particularly feel like nothing that we do is ever going to be enough. COVID fatigue and financial uncertainty, spiritual frustration, the anxiety of having to live in the same house as your refrigerator during a pandemic. All of these things can weigh heavily on us until we just feel like there's nothing that we can do that'll really matter. Well, in today's mind shift, I have some thoughts that I think might just change how you and I look at that in the future. And welcome back. I'm going to go ahead and pull the comment section up here and try to chew gum and talk at the same time. Anytime something terrible would happen, whether it was the death of a friend or someone being diagnosed with a terrible disease, someone losing their job or their home, my grandmother would say, "Ma cosa si può fare?" What can you do? And today I want to answer that question. You see, right now, two of the most important people in my life, two of the people most beloved in my life, are struggling with some of the most difficult challenges that come with aging and come toward the end of our lives. And my siblings, some of them unwilling to stop panicking long enough to listen to reasoning and to take advice from somebody who knows how this should be handled, are busy putting band aids on metaphoric severed limbs. And there's so much jockeying going on, as there would be in any family, to see who's going to ultimately control the decisions that ultimately belong to my parents and my parents alone. And I can hear my grandmother say, "But what are you going to do? That's life, right?" Wrong. See, when things happen to us that are difficult and we just want to make it all stop, we don't just throw our hands up in the air and say, "Well, what are you going to do?" That doesn't accomplish anything. Teddy Roosevelt admonished, "We do what we can with what we have, with where we are," or something along those lines. And so, to that end, my youngest sister took my parents into her home for the next couple of weeks so that we could create a safety net during that couple of weeks that it's going to take to sort all of this out, so that while we are blindsided, we still have a plan and we do what we can do. And so I acknowledge and applaud her response to do what she could while we're figuring this all out. When someone loses a job or becomes homeless, you don't just throw your hands in the air and say, "Well, what are you going to do?" You do what you can. It doesn't matter how insignificant what you do might feel. For weeks, as the winter months drew closer, I would see homeless people in the park here in Harrisburg huddling closer together to stay warm. And I knew that I'd lost my sole source of income just after my own hospitalization with COVID last February and March. So I was painfully aware that while we were eating only one meal a day, splitting a single chicken breast between two and sometimes three people each night, there wasn't or there weren't a whole lot of resources that we had available to help these people that were homeless. But I also knew that we could do what we could. We only needed one blanket on the bed at a time. So that meant there were two blankets in the linen closet, and those two blankets weren't being used. We only had one head on each of our shoulders. And so, well, on each pair of our shoulders. So that meant that for 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 us, there were a couple, four or five knit hats that were going unused at any given time. And I knew that we lived up the road from a couple hotels and motels that might have blankets that were retiring, um, or being retired due to maybe a small hole or a tear that wouldn't make it um, proper or appropriate to put those blankets on the beds in the hotel. So I could ask if we could have them for the homeless. So that's what I did. Now, make no mistake about it, those small acts didn't make anyone out there less homeless. The peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that we would put together when we had some extra bread didn't make anybody really that much less hungry, but it might have helped them hang in there one more night. We do what we can. And when enough of us do that, it makes a world of difference. So I just want to encourage you to make this your mind shift for the week. Do what you can. The spring is coming. We've just gone through the longest metaphoric winter in many of our lives. Some of the older folks that are here went through far worse during the Holocaust, during the World Wars. But we just went through a period of 12 months in which we lost on average one person for every minute in every day for the past year. Over 520,000 souls lost. And that can be exhausting. And we can feel like no matter what we do, it's not enough. But this isn't the time to give up. Remember, I talked about yesterday that the period of time that most people give up is right before the breakthrough. And we can see that light at the end of the tunnel. We just have to continue to mask. We have to not be stupid and say things like, well, I had my vaccine. That means I'm not shedding any virus, so I don't put anybody at risk. That's not true. We still have to do what we can. We can wash our hands. We can wear our masks. We can exercise social distancing. And according to the CDC guidelines, when people are in our home, in our bubble, we can feel a lot safer now with closer acts of intimacy when those people are all vaccinated. We have to do what we can because we can't all get vaccinated right at this moment, but the time's coming. There are people who've lost their jobs, they've lost their homes, some have lost their families because of this pandemic. And we may not have a whole lot to work with ourselves, but we can do what we can. Over the wintertime, I stopped to think about the fact that the little bit that was coming in from classes that I taught was really helping make the difference between having even that one chicken breast to share at night and not having anything. And I realized there were other teachers, other writers, other artisans in the world who didn't have the tech skills that I have. So I took everything that was coming in and put it into building a new platform so that these teachers would have a place to teach, to connect with people. And so that people who might have, before the pandemic, gone to conventions and conferences and classes and local bookstores to have a place to connect with people that were like-minded, could have a place to connect with those kind of folks online, so that we could take the drudgery of my $15 a month Zoom room and turn it into something meaningful, something that allows us to connect heart to heart. So we could be high tech, but still high touch. We do what we can. So wherever you are, whatever the circumstances are in your life right now, I encourage you, just do what you can. The end is in sight. It's within our grasp. It's within reach. It's within the realm of possibilities, but none of it will happen unless we do what we can. And remember, even if what you think that you can do is so small, so insignificant, that you don't think it's going to make a difference, when a lot of people are doing little things that make a difference, that's how you end up with pyramids. Although ancient astronaut theorists will tell you otherwise. But we do what we can, and by doing it together, we can make a world of difference. I encourage you guys to stay in the moment, to fill that moment with gratitude for what you have, because no matter how difficult things are, no matter how little you have right now, if you can't be grateful for that, then what makes you think you're going to be any happier with more? And when you do that, when you fill the moment with gratitude, when you bring your awareness to the present, that's when you realize that no matter what things look like right now, the best is yet to come. And we'll close out today with a message from an organization that's doing incredible work around the world by doing what they can to make a difference, to make this a little more compassionate world. I'll see you guys later.
The principle of compassion lies at the heart of all religious, ethical, and spiritual traditions,
calling us always to treat all others as we wish to be treated ourselves.
Compassion impels us to work tirelessly to alleviate the suffering of our fellow creatures.
To dethrone ourselves from the center of our world and put another there.
To honor the inviolable sanctity of every single human being.
Treating everybody without exception.
With absolute justice, equity, and respect.
It is also necessary in both public and private life.
To refrain consistently and empathically from inflicting pain.
To act or speak violently out of spite, chauvinism, or self-interest.
To impoverish, exploit, or deny basic rights to anybody.
And to incite hatred by denigrating others, even our enemies.
Is a denial of our common humanity.
We acknowledge that we have failed to live compassionately.
And that some have even increased the sum of human misery in the name of religion.
We therefore call upon all men and women
to restore compassion
to the center of morality and religion.
To return to the ancient principle
that any interpretation of scripture
that breeds violence,
hatred,
or disdain
is illegitimate.
To ensure that youth are given accurate and respectful information
about other traditions, religions, and cultures.
To encourage a positive appreciation
of cultural and religious diversity.
To cultivate
an informed empathy
with the suffering of all human beings,
even those
regarded as enemies.
We urgently need to make compassion a clear, luminous, and dynamic force in our polarized world.
Rooted in a principled determination to transcend selfishness.
Compassion can break down political, dogmatic, ideological, and religious boundaries.
Born of our deep interdependence, compassion is essential for human relationships and to a fulfilled humanity.
It is the path to enlightenment and indispensable in the creation of a just economy and a peaceful global community.